All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I want to make a special video of 10 off-meta grind spots that I think are still good and, you know, comparatively competitive with the meta spots. Now, you're probably wondering, why would I grind here if I could just go to the best spots? One, usually these spots are generally open, so you can grind in peace for the most part. And two, it's not that far off in terms of silver. And every spot I'm going to talk about, I have personally tested. So I think that even if you grind these spots now, it's fine. If you like the spot, I think people should just grind where they like in general, even if it's more or less silver. It's just if whatever makes you happy at the end of the day. And so I think a lot of these spots are low-key good, but not like top-of-the-line silver. But either way, still competitive. And the way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be going in the Monster Zone info and going down in the AP order. So whether you're a beginner or not, all the way going into the end game, I think this would probably be helpful, especially if you're a new player and don't want to, you know, there's not really much duel for spots these days. However, a lot of spots could be taken if, you know, you're grinding in some meta spot. But with that said, going down the list, I think we're gonna start around, let's see, I guess we'll start around 180 AP because this is a pretty decent opener, and you're probably still on the seasonal servers if you are grinding here. So I think this is a good beginner spot. Now, this isn't necessarily the best spot, but it is really good because there's a lot of reasons you have to be here. One being the infinite potions piece, and as we all know, the infinite health potion is probably one of the most important things you're going to need going into the end game, so it's better to get this early on. And if you're doing this at like 280 AP instead of like, I don't know, 180 to 200, you're going to be like, oh, I could be grinding another spot and making a lot more silver. So I think it is a good thing to grind out early on. And it's also good for the weeklies. So this spot in Bloodwolf, besides the infinite potion pieces and the pity ones, you can get the Cagdanacs, which turn into the dark red fang crystals. And those are actually pretty meta crystals right now. Not the best, but they are a good placeholder up until you get to endgame. And of course, like, you know, all of this stuff, you know, the Marnie box is kind of nice if you are a title hunter and want to collect all of them. But either way, this is a low-key, a lot of silver for newer players. But when you ask other people, they're going to be like, oh, grind like centaurs or something. But this spot, low-key good. And you know, if you get the Cagdanac, that's like doubling your trash loot an hour or something. Next one I want to talk about is down in here. So Mirror Mock Ruins. This is a good spot for XP. And this used to be the meta spot before Gyfin came out. And, you know, of course, all the end game spots. I think this one is still pretty good if you were trying to push like level 63, 64. And I think that overall, it is a beginner XP grind spot, which is also pretty decent. You also get a bunch of the Atanas elements, which go for, basically, you use these as a substitute for the pity pieces, and you get to pick the one you want. And Forest Furies, at least here on the NA server, are low-key, you know, they're kind of needed, because if you try to put an order on one in the market, there's so many orders. Let me just actually look at that. I'm pretty sure the last time I looked at it, it was, yeah, that's not great. So grinding here is probably a good source of them. Do I think they're worth more than 24 million? Yeah, because you use them going into the late game and you use them for the cups and accessory upgrades. So that's why people want them. And so it's one of those things that if you can stockpile a bunch early on, that's probably the best place to do it. And there's few more, but I would do that and get XP while you're at it. The next place I want to talk about, we're going into, let's see, the 230 area. So we're talking about Kratuga Ancient Ruins. Now, this spot used to actually be meta, and then they nerfed it a few times. It was just a lot of silver, and then they toned it down. However, I think for a beginner to intermediate level player who isn't at the endgame red artifact spots like the Kabuas and, you know, the DR and evasion ones, these are a good alternative to get anything you want. And I talked about this in some other videos where I would still recommend grinding Kratuga, even though the pool of artifacts is a lot larger. To give you an example, if you are going for, let's say, accuracy from Thornwood, I think that here in Thornwood, you probably get one artifact every, you know, maybe hour or two. And it's not even the right one. However, if you grind Kratuga, you're getting one like every 10 minutes. So yes, there's a larger pool, but you're going to get more overall, which I think in theory, the chance of you getting the right one in the long run is probably a lot higher. So the reason why this bot I wouldn't consider meta anymore is because Tungrads are, you know, not 100 mil anymore. So same with Laytons, and that's just through time and gear progression, they are going to drop in price. Elcars are still a pretty decent crystal. They're not the best anymore because you could upgrade them into the higher accuracy ones, and then of course there are actually accuracy crystals. So either way, it's still a pretty solid amount. You could use Agris here and still pull a decent amount of silver, but the artifacts are where things come in, where you can, you know, what is it, simple alchemy them and turn them into those lightstone thingies, and, you know, that's always a fun thing. And the next one that I think kind of fell off is Sakraya Underwater. And the reason why this spot was good is when Tungrad rings were like 200 mil each and more. And so getting like 3 of them an hour was a lot, plus the trash loot and everything. However, I think Abyssal Essences are actually something to grind for. And if you are not at the end game, and let's say you aren't at spots where you necessarily need harmonies or, you know, full-on elixirs, I think the frenzy drafts are a lot, you know, cheaper alternatives. So you basically get these Abyssal Essences, and then you turn them into a frenzy, and then they probably give you a lot of those magical things to turn them into like 1 hour potions instead of 15 or so. So yeah, you could always sell these. Back in the day, these weren't able to be sold, and then now they are. So I think frenzies are actually still decent if you are not at the end game. So, you know, always good. And the only downside about this and why I would consider it off meta is because it's underwater. And here's the spot, like in the middle of the ocean. So if you don't have a compass or you don't have a boat, here's what I would do. Go to Velia, take one of those traveler's maps to Ilia Island, run from Ilia Island all the way down to like the coast around here, and then just start swimming up until like into the ocean area over here. And once, you know, like you see how it says like affiliated node and something, it'll swap to Sakraya, and then you can escape down into the Sakraya area and then go in from there. So that's how you do it without, you know, having a boat or anything. So that's just one way, or just get compassed in from your guildies or friends. That's another option. But either way, that spot used to be very solid. However, just through time, I think it fell off. But either way, I still think it's good. And let me see what's next. Another interesting spot that I think is off meta is Mirrorwax Labyrinth. Now, I like the design of this one. If you've never grinded here, essentially it's like you go into a cave and up to 5 people can go as well. And think of like a 5-slice pizza or something where everyone has their own room, and everyone rotates rooms every like 15 minutes or so. And that allows people to grind, you know, basically in their own instance. And then eventually after like an hour or something, the boss will spawn, and then everyone goes, all the 5 people can go into the boss and fight it together and then get some big loot. But yeah, the reason why you're there, Flame of Frost, I think the drop rate is just dumb low, not gonna lie. However, getting iridescents are usually pretty nice. That's a free 1.8 bill. Forgotten Witches tokens, that's an okay rate from here, from the time I've grinded. And then all these extra crystals, or, you know, yeah, things that crystals. These are very niche ones where I think that they're more tailored towards PvP, but some of these, you know, just more beginner friendly than anything. The better versions are, you know, more expensive. But also, so like the Flame of Frost, Iridescent, and Forgotten Witches tokens are very nice, plus whatever trash loot you make. All right, so the next spot I want to talk about that is competitive, but also, you know, off meta, is Bloody Monastery. So this is like one step down from Elvia or Camp. We all know if you're doing Elvia in like the Serendia area, or Camp is the way to go. However, I do also think Bloody Monastery is a really fun one because it drops those Crimson Bells. And if you ever played, I don't know, like one of those Dynasty Warrior games, you know how you just get hordes of enemies coming towards you and you just like melt everything? That's actually kind of fun. So when you stack like 7 of the bells and then you just get like waves of everything at the end, it's kind of fun. Also, Shards of the Drain Knight for your cups for accessory upgrades is always good. You do get a decent amount of sealed black magic crystals, which is, you know, pretty valuable these days. The one thing that fell off was the lunar necklace, because those used to be like capped at 300 mil each, and then if you got like 3 of them, that's huge money. But nowadays this kind of fell off. However, this is still pretty decent silver and fun. You get a bunch of the other things that you sell to the vendor, and yeah, it's a pretty decent spot. And like if you wanted to do meta, it would be Camp. It's the way it is, but this one is still fun. The next thing I wanted to talk about was Decia Histria. Now, as we all know, anyone who's ever tried to go for the compass knows that the Elton piece is probably one of the huge pain to go for. And yeah, that one, like the entire compass took me like 500 hours back in the day. It was not great. But anyway, so now that they made Decia, instead of doing a full rotation by the river or in the like loop room, now you could just have like waves of Decia enemies coming at you. And admittedly, it is a little bit higher on the gear score side. However, like having waves come to you instead of you doing loops is a lot more, you know, like I think the chance of you getting one in the long term is probably higher to get the Elton. So I think this one is a decent spot as well. And the silver, ultimately not too bad. Yeah, so I think that's good. The next one I think is a fun spot is Hex Sanctuary. Now, the reason why this one is no longer as good is because the crystallized despairs are only 20 mil instead of back in the day they were like 60, 70. That was when Land in the Morning Light came out and everyone was kind of saving these for the Dawn Gloves. We all know how that went. And so overall, I think this is a pretty chill spot. Every now and then you get the event like Ogres, Cyclops thingy, and they drop the Distos. And the chance of the Blessed Fragment is stupidly low, but it's also kind of, you know, the chance of you getting one. But either way, the trash loot value is still pretty solid. Crystallized despairs, they do sell. And I think you actually use them to make like 100 stacks now or something. Or, you know, just like you use them to make fail stacks. So off meta, but still useful. The next one I want to talk about is well, let me see, where is it? Did I pass it? Yeah, Decia Thornwood. This spot, when the ominous rings were about 300 mil, even 200 mil each, it was insane because this bot, for some reason, has a very high drop rate for ominous rings. And even now, if you get like 3, I think you get like 3 average an hour, that's still a pretty good chunk of silver. Plus, there's the Forgotten Limbo seals that are new, or new. And then, of course, all the trash and Capris. A lot of the trash loot here is still low-key good. And even if you have a okay-ish class, you're still making like 1.23 billion silver an hour. It's not the same as like making 3 billion an hour, but it is very chill for a spot. And, you know, the ominous rings, they may not be the best, but it's still a decent amount. And the 2 more spots I want to talk about that I think, you know, people still do grind here, but it's like if you have the gear for all these spots, chances are you're at the meta spots like Dark Seekers or Tungrad. I think Cyclops Land is actually a decent one. The one thing I would recommend is, you know, turning off your sound when you're grinding here, because the gargoyle things are just actually obnoxiously loud. But Dawn Earrings are, you know, not super common, but they're not uncommon. And also with the Forgotten Limbo Seals, you know, getting 2 Deboreka rings an hour, or not every few hours, is a bonus. And so, yeah, underrated spot. Fell off a little bit when Dawn, like, Karazad came out. But I still think if you were to grind here, it would be a very solid one. Now, the last one I want to talk about is Quint Hill. Now, this one is actually something that I still think is good, especially with Agris. And I wouldn't say it's a dead spot. People still actually go here. However, it's one of those things that just kind of, you know, instead of taking first place back in the day, I would say it's probably, you know, still top 5 if you're good. You do use Agris here. You could use an Agris coin here, but the trash loot is actually worth a lot. If you know how to grind this place properly, you like make a lot, like 1.5, 1.6 billion off trash loot alone. And if you get any bonuses, that's just like doubling your silver. So I think that this one is a very good spot. However, the gear score requirement is pretty high, to the point where most people would choose like Dark Seekers or Tungrad or even Olins with a group over this one. But I think this one is just, it fell off, but I think it's still good. So those are the 10 spots that I think are off meta. Now, keep in mind, I still think people grind all the spots that I talk about, and it's just not what they used to be. But I think they're chill spots, decent silver, still in 2025. And ultimately, if you just want to grind in peace and not have too much danger associated with it, like Dark Seekers, for example, if you like are not paying attention, you could go from like 100 to 0 health and, you know, really quickly. And all of these spots, not too bad. So it's one of those things where you can just watch like a stream or a podcast on the side and you'll be good. So with that said, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I thought it was a unique one where I have personally tested all of these, and chances are if you go to these spots, you'll, you know, find an open spot relatively easily. Some of them are more populated than others, but I think ultimately you'll be fine. So I will see you guys later. Have a fantastic day. If you want to check out some more of the other videos I talk about, like the actual best spots for silver, XP, Agris, I'll leave a link in the description below. Peace.